Hello and welcome to Hammer Time, a Hammer horror podcast, part of the Evolution of Horror Network. I'm Becky Darke, a film critic and Hammer novice, and I'm joined by my co-host, human encyclopedia of film and TV, and Hammer superfan, Kevin Lyons. Hi, Kev.
Hi, Becky. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Happy New Year.
Yes, it's our first recording of 2026, this one, isn't it? So
2026, here we come.
And we're this time next year, 2027, we'll have only just finished all this.
That's right. We'll just be starting our Red Dwarf podcast, our Amicus podcast, our Roger Corman
all the thousands
podcast.
of others that we've talked about, yeah.
In this podcast, Kevin and I are watching and discussing every horror film in Hammer's back catalogue. And this week we're in Spain under a full moon with Oliver Reed, aka My Dream Come True, as we cover The Curse of the Werewolf from 1961.
The curse of the werewolf that was laid on a baby who grew into a man possessed by a monster.
Our Hammer Time discussions are all spoilerific, and we go into plot details and chat about the endings of the films. So if you'd like to watch The Curse of the Werewolf before listening to this episode, it's available to rent or buy on VOD. So, Kev, we've been working our way through all the classic horror monsters. So far, we've done aliens, we've done yetis, Frankenstein's creatures, Dracula and his cult of vampires, The Mummy, we've done Mr. Hyde, and now we're at werewolves. So, first question, how do you feel about werewolf movies in general?
They can be a bit of a mixed bag, can't they?
They can.
I don't think they've been as consistently good as vampire movies, for example, or, God help us, zombie movies. I know there's millions of them, but there's some really, really good ones. Whereas the classic werewolf movie is a lot harder to find, I think.
Yeah.
It's not one that translates terribly well. And particularly we Brits had a real problem with them, it seems, because this, surprisingly, 1961, is the first British werewolf film.
What?
America had been making them since at least 1913 in a film called The Werewolf, but this was the first time we'd done one.
That's crazy.
Isn't that incredible?
Isn't there like a really old black and white one called Werewolf of London or something?
Yeah, but that's Universal. That's American.
No way.
Yeah. So this is our first attempt at it, and the big one in Dr. Terror's House of Horrors, the Amicus film. One of the stories involves a werewolf, but they've been we were very reluctant to do werewolves for some reason, and I'm not sure why that was.
That is quite jaw-dropping to me. Yeah, it is shocking. I'm really surprised.
Well, when you consider that post-millennium, with this sort of massive boom in British horror films, there have been loads of werewolf films.
Right.
You know, starting with Dog Soldiers, and moving on from, which is a classic. You know, the only other really big ones that I can think of that were British pre-millennium were Legend of the Werewolf, which was made by Tyburn, and American Werewolf in London.
Yeah.
Which was directed by an American. So it's kind of, I don't know why we didn't warm to them like we did to vampires and zombies and all the rest of it. It's strange that we kind of neglected the poor old werewolf.
Yeah, it's funny. I did a sort of ranking with Empire magazine, I think last year. Producer Mike was on it with me as well, appeared in the magazine. And I think going into that, I was a little bit like, oh, yeah, fine, werewolves, okay. Like, how many good ones can there be? Are we even going to be able to find a top 10 werewolf movies?
Right.
Like, we're going to be sort of slightly scraping the barrel for these. And I binged for about, 8 or 9 days. I watched nothing but werewolf movies, and I had the time of my life, and came out at the end of this experience being like, wait a minute, a werewolf's my favourite subgenre of horror. Now, I don't think they actually are, but There were some real bangers. And I think, as you say, Kev, you know, like I'd maybe not sort of realised that actually there were many sort of classics or ones that were necessarily worth kind of diving into.
Sure.
But by the end of that, I had a very solid list of really, really good werewolf movies.
There are some great ones. There are some really good ones. The Wolfman, American Werewolf, The Howling, Dog Soldiers. You know, they're really great films. But
absolutely, yeah. Ginger Snaps is incredible.
Yes, fantastic.
Even like The Company of Wolves from 84 with Angela Lansbury is amazing.
Terrific film. Is it really about werewolves, or is it about... It's about a lot of things, Company of Wolves, but that's a whole other subject.
Yeah, I know.
But it's a good film. That's a great one, you know.
There is that incredible like sort of transformation sequence of the wedding in it, which is so good.
It's amazing. That stands apart, I think, from the whole of the rest of the pack, if you'll excuse the pun.
Oh, but, very nice.
Like what I did there. That's clever, isn't it?
Love it.
I haven't been lazy just because we've had a couple of weeks off for Christmas and New Year, you know. I've been honing my comedy skills, I shall have you know.
Did you get that one out of a Christmas cracker, Kev? Is that what happened?
Oh, don't give away the secrets. Good God.
But that kind of watch through that I did last year was the first time that I saw Hammer's The Curse of the Werewolf.
Yes.
And it absolutely featured in the top 10 werewolf movies that I submitted. I really enjoyed this film. So I have been excited to revisit it for our podcast.
Absolutely. No, I like it a great deal. I really do. I think it's got a huge amount going for this film. It really has.
Mainly Oliver Reed's chest. But, you know, we'll get to that.
I'll give you some time on your own when we get to that part. You know?
So how did this one come into production for Hammer, Kev?
Well, this is all part of their deal with Universal. If you remember, we've been talking about how they kept hopping in and out of bed with various American companies. They were mainly signed up with Columbia, but part of the deal with Columbia was that they could go away and make one film a year, I think it was, with whoever they wanted to.
Okay.
And Universal, obviously, were chomping at the bit to get Hammer back because they'd done very well out of them. And they were given access to their vast archive, all their classic monsters. And at first, they weren't that bothered about making a werewolf film, to be honest. Universal had got the rights to Guy Endor's 1933 novel, The Werewolf of Paris. And eventually, Hammer sort of subcontracted that from them. I sort of get really between the lines that they weren't that passionate about it. It was just another monster film to do.
Sure.
But fate intervened a little bit here. They were going to make a film about the Spanish Inquisition, originally called The Rape of Sabina, later changed to a somewhat less contentious title, The Inquisitor. We mentioned Red Dwarf earlier. I want to do a Crichton at this point and call it The Inquisitor. I should try not to do that. But so The Inquisitor, they were going to make this film. It's about the Spanish Inquisition. They'd got to the point of designing and starting work on sets by Bernard Robinson. And they thought, we can save a bit of money here, can't we? We could film 2 films on these sets back to back. So we'll move The Werewolf of Paris to warmer climes. It'll become, you know, The Werewolf of Madrid, except it didn't. I'm just making that up. But you know what I mean? They decided, let's set it in Spain so we can make use of these sets. But Columbia, who were financing that Inquisition film, they got cold feet after the poor reception of their comedy film, The Ugly Duckling, their sort of comedy Jekyll and Hyde film.
Yeah.
It didn't do very well at the box office, and they had a bit of a wobble. And they told Hammer, right, no more comedies, just horror films from now on. We don't want anything else from you.
Oh, okay.
Just horror films. So The Inquisitor bit the dust. But they'd still got these sets.
So wait, I'm sorry. It was going to be a comedy film about the Spanish Inquisition.
No. But they just didn't want anything other than straight horror. So no comedy, no historical epics, no war film.
Yeah, that period of history that is notoriously a bundle of laughs.
Oh, J for minute, wasn't it, back then? It really was. It was that was those Inquisitors and their bizarre sense of humour. No. Sorry, I could have worded that better. No, they didn't want anything, basically, that wasn't
I see.
a horror film. And The Inquisitor, I'm sure they would have done it in horror style, but it wasn't an immediate horror subject. So they said, no, we don't want that. Do the werewolf film instead. So they pulled that forward. Michael Carreras, who was one of the big producers there, son of managing director James Carreras, was so angry at this because, the Inquisitor was his big project.
Oh, right.
He actually left Hammer for a while to strike out on his own after this.
Oh, wow.
He was so upset by it. I mean, he comes back later, and we're going to talk a great deal about him in the 1970s when he becomes the key player. But for a little while, he was AWOL from Hammer House. And, so it had sort of repercussions, this film.
That's so interesting. Wow, that's a really I don't know, sort of quite layered production story behind this one then for just,
It is.
the first werewolf film.
There's a lot going on behind the scenes in this film, to be honest. Yeah.
Love that. All right, so we'll do the plot of the movie. I've got it from Letterboxd, as is my wont. It's a short one. So, in 18th century Spain, a child conceived by a mute servant girl transforms from an innocent youth to a killer beast at night with uncontrollable urges.
You can get away with a short synopsis because that really is what it's about.
Yeah, basically.
There are layers, like you said, there are bits and pieces going on in it, but essentially that is what it's about. It's a werewolf film. It's very difficult, I think, and maybe this explains why we didn't make so many werewolf films to start with. Very difficult to get much nuance out of a werewolf.
I think that's literally what I was about to say, Kev. It's simple because, as you say, that's a werewolf film. You've just described the plot of a werewolf film. It might be set in different places. The kind of origin or the lore behind it might be a bit different, but kind of plot structure-wise, that often tends to be the sort of go-to, doesn't it?
It does. And even things like, you mentioned Ginger Snaps, which is an incredible film where they sort of put all kinds of nuance in that film that you don't get in most werewolf films. It still comes down to Ginger turns into a werewolf and rips people apart.
Yep.
That's basically the plot, but that's such a clever film.
Oh my God.
If anybody's listening to this and hasn't seen Ginger Snaps, sort your lives out. Go and watch it now. Stop listening to us because it is an extraordinary film. It really is quite amazing.
And I'll also say that the two sequels are pretty solid as well. As a kind of complete trilogy, the Ginger Snaps films are relatively consistent. Neither of the two sequels quite live up to the first one, as they rarely do, but they are both well worth a watch.
They don't embarrass the original, which a lot of sequels do. And the third one in particular, when it completely goes off the rails and hey look, we're going back in time to,
well, it almost turns into a Hammer film at that point.
It almost turns into a sort of Hammer werewolf western, doesn't it, the third one? It's like, what the hell? And it's just like, they're amazing. They're really good. But that's possibly for another podcast. But they are really, really good films. Go and watch them.
And you're right. They sort of do the Buffy the Vampire Slayer approach where, they drag it into high school and it's all kind of, the horror of being a teenage girl that kind of, fuels this sort of werewolf plot. But at the end of the day, it's still just a werewolf film, right?
It bites into that anxiety and tension of being a teenager, particularly a teenage girl, where your body is in open rebellion.
Yes.
And it's completely changing.
I remember it well.
I remember being on the receiving end of it, trust me. But, sort of boys go through sort of weird bits as well with a teenager, but nothing like girls have to go through. And I think that's what the genius of that film was.
Yeah.
I think here we do get some kind of nuance from this that... We will get into it as we go along, but like father, like son in this film, that both are caged beasts.
Yeah, absolutely.
In this film. Leon is sort of, he never met his father, but he kind of, it's almost genetic as part of his makeup that he's going to end up being this caged beast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've both kind of suggested already that we like this film, Kev, and I know that it was a repeat watch for both of us. But what's your kind of history with Curse of the Werewolf? How did you find it this time around?
Well, like a good many people, I first saw it on television when it was, to be honest, it was more ripped to shreds than any of Leon's victims. The censorship on this film was extraordinary.
Really?
Right from theatrical thing. Even the Americans trimmed it, which was very rare, but the BBFC had an absolute conniption fit when they first saw the script and said, no, that's got to come out. Hammer, bless them, decided, okay, we'll tell them, we'll get rid of it, and then did it anyway.
Love this approach.
It's the way Hammer were. And they sent them a black and white copy of the finished film so it wouldn't look so bloody. And the BBFC had finally snapped and had enough of Hammer's cheek, basically. And they had extensive cuts. And then when it got to television, it was cut even more. So my first contact with it was a quite heavily cut version of it on television. Seeing it many years later restored to its gory glory, it was quite the revelation, particularly the final act, which works much better in the uncut version than it does in the cut version.
I bet, yeah. So
I do like it.
Do you know sort of which scenes or which moments were cut by the BBFC?
Well, one of the things that struck me I watched it again last night, and one of the things that immediately struck me at the end is, sorry, this is where the spoilers come in, so if you ignored the spoiler warning earlier, take heed here. I think, to be honest, you can work out how it's going to end. It's going to end the same way all werewolf films do. But at the end, when Leon the werewolf is shot by his father, and blood literally spurts out of this wound on his chest.
Yeah.
It sprays out of him. And watching it last night, I thought, I didn't see that back in 1970, whenever it was. The dear old BBC were going to take them the scissors to that one, even if the BBFC had left it in, and they didn't. So, the attacks they didn't like the attacks on people.
Yeah,
the violence and sometimes they're slightly sexualised.
Yeah, well, when he's with the sex worker in the kind of tavern on the Saturday night when they go to spend their wages.
That's right, yeah. Nothing changes much, does it?
No.
But those kind of, they didn't like that. The BBFC didn't like that at all. And Hammer had been taking the proverbial a little bit here, I think, by pushing and pushing and pushing. And this seemed to be the moment where the board said, no,
right,
that's enough now. Okay, you are taking the pee here, aren't you? Just stop expecting us to let these things through without a fight.
There is something about just werewolf attacks, I suppose, like with a vampire, even with Frankenstein's creature. He's always sort of maybe just throwing people around.
Sure.
A vampire is obviously quite a again, it's sexualized, but it's just sort of a puncture. You're not necessarily getting them kind of tearing people to shreds or limbs coming off and that kind of thing. I know you don't get limbs coming off in Curse of the Werewolf, but there's a bit more of an overt violence, isn't there, to a werewolf attack? So I guess it makes sense that if they were going to put their foot down about any of the monsters, a werewolf film might be the one.
Exactly. It's more of a physical violence, isn't it, if you know what I mean? It's more of a sort of, yes, you can get bitten or you can get pushed and thrown around, but you're going to get ripped apart.
Ripped and torn, yeah, exactly.
It's a wild animal that's attacking you. And, if you imagine being out in a forest somewhere, a wolf pack descends on you, that's going to be a terrifying proposition. But for a wolf that's taken the form of a man, and a very powerful man, it's going to inflict some very serious damage, isn't it? So, that's what Hammer, I think, were trying to get across, and what the board were desperately trying to avoid. So, I didn't want any of that nonsense, thank you very much indeed.
However, we love all that stuff, and
of course we do.
Yeah, I think this is a really fantastic film, actually. And so this is the second time that I've watched it. I enjoyed it even more on rewatch. I think I got even more out of it. Maybe when I watched it first time round, and as I say, I really liked it, and it went into my top 10. But maybe because it was kind of one of so many werewolf films that I was watching.
Sure.
There were maybe subtleties and things that I sort of, glossed over at the time. And also I was watching them just sort of in very quick succession and trying to sort of get them all done. This time, obviously, I had a bit more time to kind of luxuriate in it. I was watching it much more in the context of other Hammer films. And I think, I came out of it on second watch and enjoyed it so much. Like I really, and it breaks my heart. And this is something I want to come on to talk about in a little bit more detail when we talk about kind of the way that it handles werewolves in general. But I think that there's an inherent tragedy to a lot of werewolf stories.
Oh, yes.
And that comes across in this film so much. It's so sad.
Hammer had kind of touched on this in earlier films, but not in the way that they do here. You know, there is a sadness to Frankenstein's creations.
Of course, yeah.
There's a sadness to Dracula. You know, this sort of loneliness of evil that Christopher Lee likes to talk about. It's... You know, the monsters are kind of inherently tragic figures. Look at Victor Carroon and the Quatermass experiments.
Oh, of course. I mean, yeah.
The most tragic of all of them up until this point. But this one, it really is so, so sad. And a lot of that is down to two performances, one of them being our man Oliver Reed. We'll come to the other one in a little while. But it's just the way he sells it, the agony of what he's going through. The way his body is changing, you know, a teenage boy, his body is changing, but it's changing in a way that none of us had to put up with.
Right.
You know, this is an extreme version of what, you know, teenage boys would go through. You would imagine that teenage boys in the audience might have picked up on that, but as we'll see later, it didn't really click with the public, I'm afraid.
Oh.
So maybe people didn't see it so much. But,
okay.
But I think, yes, you're absolutely right to highlight the tragedy. I think that's what Terence Fisher was going for.
So yeah, Terence Fisher is back in the director's chair again. We've seen a lot of his Hammer horrors by this point, Kev. Are we seeing? Do you think we're sort of seeing any particular evolution in his style, or is he just a very safe pair of hands?
I think there's a bit of both, really. Yes, of course he was a safe pair of hands. He was an incredibly good director.
Yeah.
You know, he's like... We will, you know, you'll see if you go and watch some of the films he made away from Hammer, that he did rely quite a lot on the team around him at Bray Studios. Yeah. And that's fine.
Cinematographer and...
production designers. Cast and so on. But... part of the skill of being a director, I think some people think, oh, I could be a director. I could just point a camera at something and, you know, sort of make it look good. But that's not being a director. The big part of being a director is marshalling the forces at your fingertips.
Bringing all these elements together.
Exactly. And Fisher knew how to trust everybody and knew how to sort of say to lighting guys, this is what I want. Great, we'll do it, you know. And... so I do think we see a little bit of him evolving. I think he gets more confident, particularly, as I mentioned, with the violence in it. So I think, you know, this is the most extreme film in terms of physical violence that we've seen so far. And I think that's him sort of feeling, well, OK, we can get away with this. We've been getting away with it for so long. Tragically, he proved wrong. But, you know, I think, yeah, he is changing here. And I think, you know, we've talked about this sort of fairy tale quality to his films. That really is in here.
Yeah.
And amongst all the blood and the violence and the transformations and the screaming and all the rest of it, there's a fairy story being told.
Very much so, yeah. Interesting that we were talking about Company of Wolves earlier, which is very much rooted in that. But here we've got castles and the sort of the rich and the poor and big feasts and, you know, noble marriages and things. And then, you know, people kind of going off to find their fortune and actually finding trouble and all of that kind of thing.
Yeah. It's classic fairy story stuff, isn't it? But it's sort of couched in sort of gothic horror form.
Yeah.
And I think this so far has been his most fairy tale like film. We will have one more when it really becomes a proper fairy story. But so far, I think this is the one where he really brings that to the fore. And he does that by highlighting the tragedy. Yeah,
definitely. And as you say, leaning into the horror of a werewolf as a monster.
Yeah.
This, you know, I think if you say, and we've spoken about this before with, you know, Grimm's fairy tales, but you say fairy tale and people sort of think Disney and two little birds and deers running through the forest and, you know, princesses and all that kind of thing. But obviously, you know, what Terence Fisher was trying to do was to really lean into the horror at the heart of a fairy tale. And that's what you get here.
I was always surprised, even as a kid, when, you know, sort of doting aunts and uncles would buy you a book of, classic fairy stories. And I'd be like, oh, I don't want to read a book about fairy stories. I'm a boy. I don't read about fairy stories. And then, I'd reluctantly read them and think, blimey.
Yeah.
This is grim. I mean, literally grim, isn't it? This is really nasty stuff. Maybe that's where my love of horror was born, perhaps, in reading Grimm's fairy stories as a kid.
Yeah.
Maybe, who knows? But yeah, I mean, folklore is incredibly dark, and it was always meant to be, because it was always meant to be a bit of a warning.
That's right, exactly.
Sort of stay off the moors, lads. Stay on the path. Don't stray.
Exactly.
Don't be naughty. If you're going to be naughty, you're going to get ripped apart by a werewolf, or some evil fairies are going to take you away to the underworld or something. So there were always kind of morality tales that were kind of warnings, and they just got stronger and stronger as time went along, until eventually we arrive at Hammer, who were doing modern day fairy stories. So yeah.
So this is our first screenplay written by Anthony Hinds, right?
That's right.
Who until now has been on sort of producer duty.
Yep.
So I mean, I think it's a pretty good script. I think I've got some sort of issues with it that I'd like to talk about in terms of the sort of slightly uninteresting female characters.
Yes, definitely.
But on the whole, he's doing interesting things here with class, with the werewolf lore, with kind of romance. Like, it feels rich to me.
Yeah, and he does have its problems. I mean, there's a structural issue with it for a start. I know a lot of people sort of get quite impatient waiting for the werewolf to actually turn up. It's well over an hour before we get to see the werewolf. And yes, I can kind of see what he was trying to do, but when you've got a film called The Curse of the Werewolf, you kind of expect to see it a little bit earlier. And as you say, we're
back talking about the Abominable Snowman, I think.
We are, aren't we? Yeah. It's that sort of like hold the monster up until the very end. It's like, now you've learnt your lesson from that. You've been doing it, bringing it on a lot earlier. But, you also mentioned that the female characters are just a bit... so what? They're there, and that is unfortunate. I don't think Hinds actually had any real idea what to do with them.
Yeah, that's what it feels like.
Yeah, we need a love interest. We need a couple of other girlies for the girlies in the audience, but I don't really know what to do with them. I know what to do with the monster, but I don't know what to do with the women.
Yeah, well, the monster and the men, you've got men sort of... are all doing, I don't know, something a bit different. You've got them in the aristocracy, you've got them owning vineyards, you've got them working, you've got them, they've all got something.
They've got a purpose.
They've got some agency, whereas all the women are just wives or servants. Like
wives or victims, essentially.
Essentially,
It's what they're there for.
It's not very imaginative or mothers,
It's not. And we talked about that with Jimmy Sangster, of course, the original Gothic horror film writer. And he had that problem early on and sort of took it to heart. And we'll see in a couple of weeks' time, when he starts writing the psychological horror films, how suddenly they become films about women. Mm-hmm. And it's like, yeah, okay, so I learned by the fact that I didn't have terribly proactive women. Some of them were very good. Some of them were very good, but, there were a few problems there. But Hinds, I think, didn't quite know what to do here. Yeah. He'd only sort of taken over, basically, for two reasons. One, Jimmy Sangster had got fed up with Gothic horror films. He'd written a lot of them and just didn't want to do them anymore. So someone had to do them, and he decided, I'll do it. But I'll do it because I can save a bit of money. I'm the producer and the writer. Mm-hmm. But then he realised, sort of, don't know what point he came upon this conclusion, that if people saw Anthony Hinds' name twice in the credits, they might think, oh, it's a bit cheap, isn't it?
Oh, interesting.
So he actually signs all his films John Elder when he's writing. And this is a tip of the hat. This is quite cool. It's a tip of the hat to John Elder Wills, who had designed the sets for the Quatermass experiment. I
love that.
So he just sort of like, yeah, I know John Elder Wills. I will sign my name John Elder. And that was how he did it. And, it was a cost-cutting exercise, but in fairness, don't think he did too bad. The structural issue, the problems with women, but he puts an awful lot of good stuff in there. You mentioned the aristocracy.
Yeah.
That class warfare theme that runs right through Hammer's films, you know, so the working class being preyed upon by this sort of monstrous aristocracy. It's probably more in focus here than any previous film.
Yeah, I think especially the scenes kind of at the wedding at the start when the beggar, Richard Wordsworth's beggar, turns up to the castle for the wedding. And this is this is where the film starts off, right? So we've got a kind of narrator who turns out to be Don Alfredo Corledo later, but he is sort of telling this story of a beggar who turns up to a small Spanish town, and it's kind of midweek, but everything's shut and the bells are tolling. And so he goes into the tavern and he says, it's not Sunday, you know, what's going on? And they say, well, there's this huge wedding going up at the castle. All our money has gone into this rich guy's, this Marquez, his wedding. We've got nothing. If you want anything, you're going to have to go and beg up there. So he goes up to the castle and is then summarily humiliated at the hands of the Marquez and his guests. It really reminded me of the opening to Hound of the Baskervilles, actually, with all those braying aristocratic fox hunters. And so, he sort of gets thrown down. He's made to dance. And then eventually he gets thrown in the dungeon under the castle and is completely forgotten. And sort of befriends the daughter of the jailer. Who then grows up and turns into this very beautiful woman. And this lecherous old Marquez has designs on her. When she doesn't want any of that, he throws her in the dungeon as well. And this is where the sort of beginning of the beginning of the werewolf lore starts, isn't it?
It is, yes. It's interesting that they chose a completely different mythology for the werewolf than we've seen in Universal. That they sort of tie it into sort of mythology about people born on Christmas Day. Yeah, because the baby is born on Christmas Day. He's not created by being bitten by a vampire. God, you've got me doing it now, by being bitten. He's not created by being bitten by a werewolf. He's the products of sexual assault. And I think that probably rankled with the BBFC as well.
Honestly, I know that you don't actually see the beggar guy rape the servant woman. Like, literally, these people don't have names. It's beggar and servant woman. Like, but you don't see the assault in any graphic detail at all. But the aftermath, when you see her dress is torn, there's blood, there's sort of scratches on her, she's all mussed up, and there's straw in her hair, and you look at her and you think, my God, she has been through something horrendous. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if that was one of the things that the censors were a bit uncomfortable with.
Of course. And, you know, the fact that she looks like she's been attacked by a werewolf is no coincidence. No. That was a very deliberate move.
Well, and also the fact that the beggar, not so much when he first turns up and he just looks like Richard Wordsworth with a bit of muck sort of spread all over his face. But as he sort of ages in the cell, because he's just completely forgotten down there, right? So he just you know, gets older and older and older, and you know, they're only throwing him scraps, and he's obviously in a very sorry state, but he becomes extremely hirsute.
He becomes positively feral.
Yeah.
Is what he becomes. Yeah, he does become hirsute. He becomes one of the underlying themes, I think, of the film is if you treat human beings like animals, they will become animals.
Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing here. That this poor man, he just wanted a bite to eat.
I know.
At a wedding which is overflowing with food, which, they've been throwing around on the floor.
I mean, there is that horrendous moment when he comes in and is being mocked, where, as you say, the tables are kind of groaning under this feast. And the Marquez says, "Oh, my friend, you have come too late. As you can see, there is nothing but crumbs."
Yeah, and there's these crumbs would have kept that man going for a week.
Ugh.
There's just so much food still left over. And yeah, he treats him like an animal. He treats him like a subhuman. And so he becomes a subhuman, and his offspring is born with that. It's almost like a sort of generational conflict between the classes, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the aristocracy have created this monster by being so vile to the beggar. Now, the beggar turns out not to be a very nice man. He rapes a woman. But I think at that point, he's not really a man anymore.
No.
I think he's become a wild animal.
A beast.
Yeah, a beast at that point. And that's all down to this appalling Marquez who... We see him sort of like trying to chat up the servant girl and then going off and picking scabs of skin off his face. Like, really, mate? I mean, come on. Why would she look at you? How could she bear to look at you just as an employer when you look like you do? He looks horrific. He looks so nasty. And he's just a vile excuse for a human being. He reaps what he sows, basically. Yeah,
that attack when she comes up from the dungeon, and it seems to be like a brazier or something, right? That she's kind of taken down off the wall. This with this sort of iron sort of spike at the bottom, and she really goes at the marches with it.
Oh dear, what a shame. Never mind.
Yeah, quite right. Couldn't happen to a nicer bloke.
There's never been a more deserving death in Hammer, I don't think, than that vile creature. He really is nasty. I mean, he's sort of... You sort of likened this to the Hooray Henrys at the start of Hound of the Baskervilles. They're repulsive. I think this guy is on a whole other level.
Yeah.
He's a sadist. He's a monstrous... There's a horrible bit, we don't see it, and it just makes it all the worse for not seeing it, where the narrator just sort of rather calmly and blandly says his wife had died or something like that. And it's like, what the hell did he do to her?
Yeah.
What did that woman go through at the hands of this man that she's now dead? And clearly she died young because he's got no kids. And aristocracy, they just want kids, don't they, to carry on the family name.
Yeah.
She must have died very early. I can't even begin to think what she went through.
Yeah, and you're right.
Subtle moments.
It's worse
horrible.
with you actually not really finding out, right? Because your brain fills in the gaps.
Oh yeah. When I let my guard down and I let my brain have a think about that for a minute, it's so horrible. I have to immediately say, "Shut up, brain! Don't go there. That is so revolting. Don't do it. It's awful."
Like Homer Simpson, "Shut up, brain, or I'll stab you with a Q-tip."
yeah. Well, I've been likened to Homer Simpson on many occasions, but yeah. So yeah, I'll take that. But that is, these are all the little subtleties that they do work into a werewolf film. I was saying earlier, you don't get many subtleties and nuances in a werewolf film, and here they are, Anthony Hines and Terence Fisher, working in some real subtleties.
Definitely.
Now, we're going to see more of this class warfare as we go throughout this series. It's going to always be there. I'm not going to make any claim that Hammer were sort of raging socialists. I think they were quite middle-class blokes. I'm not sure that they were ready to man the barricades and all the rest of it, but they certainly had a social conscience, which a lot of filmmakers didn't have. I think we did in Britain. I think, those kitchen sink dramas, which were coming out slightly earlier, maybe they were influenced by that, perhaps, but there's definitely a social conscience at work here, as well as everything else.
Kev, I think what's interesting about it is you don't have to do that in a werewolf movie, right?
No, you don't. You don't.
If it's a werewolf film, it's got the Hammer horror label on it. People are going to go and see it, although you're suggesting they didn't. But, what I'm saying is when you're writing a werewolf film, you don't have to sort of lean into social commentary and sort
not
of
at all
themes around class. But it's interesting that they sort of make that decision, what feels like time and time again, actually, to sort of weave that into their storytelling.
I think it's one of the many things that make Hammer so timeless. That we still come back to them today, because we can recognise those subtleties and we can see them as being part of our everyday lives now.
Yeah, it's not like any of it's got any better, is it?
We're not throwing people into dungeons that we know of, but I still think... Sorry, I'm raising the red flag here. Tune out for a minute or two if you're not interested. But I still think we do treat people lower down the social pecking order rather differently than we should do. Mm-hmm. Not as kindly as we should. And I was going to say I don't think there's anybody quite as monstrous as the Marquis, but thinking about it, yeah, maybe. Anyway, let's move swiftly on before we lose half the listeners. So apologies.
Let's talk about the horror in the film rather than the horror of the world around us.
Horror of the world around us.
Do you think this film makes werewolves scary?
When we finally get to see it, yes. It keeps it hidden for far too long. That's my primary complaint about the film. But yes, when we get to see it, there's a combination, really, of Roy Ashton's incredible makeup.
It's so good.
There's a little hint of the werewolf in Werewolf of London about it, but it's in colour. It looks... ferocious.
Ferocious is such a good word.
It looks like it will do you some serious harm. Even before you see it attacking people, it looks like it's ready to go. Part of that's down to Ashton's makeup. Part of that is down to Oliver Reed.
Yeah, his physicality
the sheer
is
physicality
unreal
of the man.
In this film.
Incredible. And yeah, I think he's actually quite a scary werewolf when we get to see him, which is why I'm so disappointed that we don't see him more.
Right, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
The problem with that, of course, is... what could they have done with him that they weren't doing at the end anyway?
Yeah.
He would have just descended into a sort of a non-stop parade of werewolf attacks.
I actually quite like the way that they have him a couple of scenes before you get like the full reveal, sort of prowling around on rooftops and things.
That's right.
He's sort of bathed in shadow, but you can still see his silhouette, his hulking presence. And I quite like that. You know, I'm very much not quite to the extent of the Abominable Snowman, but I am a fan of the approach of holding the monster back, because you need the tension, you need the dread, you need to be thinking, just like we were saying, Kev, you know, your brain filling in the gaps and thinking like, oh God, what is that thing that is tearing people to shreds? And then, you know, what is great in this film, because I agree with you about the werewolf makeup. I think it's really solid. And I think what's nice is actually when you do get the reveal, it sort of matches to a certain extent what your brain has been filling in when you've just seen the silhouette.
Yes,
and all of that
definitely.
kind of stuff. I think one of the things that you sort of have to make a choice, I guess, when you are designing a werewolf. How much are you going to lean into the wolfiness of the transformation, the transformed werewolf, and how much are you going to kind of retain of the humanity or the human form? And what they've definitely done in this, so unlike something like The Howling, for example, or even American Werewolf in London, which really goes kind of full wolf, even if they might be kind of bipedal or, you know, whatever. Dog Soldiers is another example.
Sure.
They haven't gone quite that far. They still retain like a sort of human form to a certain extent.
You can still see Oliver Reed under that makeup. And that's the key thing. You can still see the Leon that we've come to know and love, the human Leon. We can still see him trapped inside this monster.
Which is what leans into the tragedy so hard, Kev.
It does. I mean, there's moments like, you know, when just before the final scenes where he's sort of shouting to his adoptive father, "You've got the silver bullet, you have to kill me. You have to kill me." And it's just tear-jerking stuff, you know? It's just, and you can see it in his eyes when he's in that bell tower, struggling with this monster that wants to kill his adoptive father, but at the same time there's Leon still peering out thinking, do it, just shoot me now and put me out of this.
Yeah.
Brilliant. That's again down to the combination of Roy Ashton's extraordinary makeup and Oliver Reed's performance. And I think Ashton knew, in fact I know that Ashton knew, because he did actually sort of say that about Oliver Reed. He said he was a really professional chap. I thought he was marvellous. He put everything he had into that role. It was a great performance. And I think he knew from the start, I have to let the audience still see him.
I love that.
I have to let his eyes still be peering out from behind the makeup. And that's what sells the illusion for me at the end, that is still Leon. It's not just some monster he's turned into, it's Leon struggling.
Yeah. It's funny that you talk about the eyes, and while we're talking about the tragedy, because the film opens with this absolute tight close-up on Oliver Reed's eyes, but it's when he is as the wolf, because you can see he's got that sort of the sort of deep sort of furrowed brow. His eyes are very bloodshot. His eyebrows are sort of quite bushy, and he's got some hair sort of stuck on his nose and stuff. You don't get to see a lot because, as I say, it is so tight. His two eyes almost completely fill the screen, but you see these tears streaming down his face underneath the credits. And oh my God, you just know from the moment this film starts, this is going to be a film that is going to not only show you a monster, but show you kind of the man that the monster has taken over.
Even before Leon's conception, we know it's going to end badly for him. Because of that opening shot.
I know.
Which, the cynic in me once upon a time used to think, they only did that so we could get the werewolf at the beginning of the film because we don't see it for so long. And as I sort of watched it more and more, I came to the same conclusion as you, that they're setting us up for the tragedy.
Yeah.
They're setting this up to be a very different kind of werewolf.
Because, again, Kev, they could have done it with the eyes.
Yes.
They didn't have to do it with the tears.
They didn't, no. And that's what sells it, isn't it? It's the fact that he's crying and it's just, the heartbreak. Mm-hmm. Excuse me, I need a tissue. I think I'm going to sob myself. It is. It's so moving. The whole film is incredibly moving. We'll come on to a bit in a moment, which really does make me go a little bit when it happens. But,
your lip is a quiver.
My lip is a quiver at that moment, yes.
Well, talking about being a quiver.
I like the link and I know just where you're going now.
Let's talk about Mr. Oliver Reed, shall we?
Would you like me to leave you and Ollie alone for a little while? I don't want to be a gooseberry here,
So, Ollie Reed, an absolute stalwart of British acting. Mountain of a man in terms of his physicality, his talent, his personality, and, his charisma, his ability to indulge in certain excesses, notoriously,
Yes.
I think beyond the sort of headlines, he is a man who was just an incredible talent and has been one of my favourite actors since I was a kid.
Oh, me too.
Since before I realised how much I fancy him. I was like, you just can't take your eyes off Oliver Reed when he's on the screen.
It was a Michael Winner film, the war film Hannibal Brooks. Mm-hmm. They did it for me because that was on television a lot when I was a kid and I loved that film. And this guy was in it, this young, handsome guy, and he was like, that's what I want to be when I grow up. Little did I know that what was going on behind the scenes, but
of course.
But, and it's a shame that those behind-the-scene things have kind of overshadowed what you were saying, how great an actor he actually was.
So good.
We still have memories of him as being that, pissed bloke on chat shows who's just making a fool of himself. But go and look at some of this early work in particular. Even right up to, he died on the set of Gladiator. I watched that again recently, and he's so good in that.
Prospero. He is absolutely... No, not Prospero. That's The Tempest. Is his name Prospero?
Prothero or something like that. Is he something like that? I forgot his name already. I only watched it a couple of weeks ago. But he's magnificent, isn't he, in it?
He has that incredible line. You sold me queer giraffes.
Only Oliver Reed could deliver that line. Oliver Reed.
With weight. I absolutely love it.
Brilliant. But that's a measure of the man that even at the end, and God bless him, nobody wants to die young. No one should. But he kind of died the way he wanted to, I guess, pissed and face down on the floor of a bar. how else was Oliver Reed going to die, But he was brilliant. He was, he had his moments on television. There was that infamous late night chat show, wasn't it, when he was drunk and flirting with the female guests and everything. And people had this idea about Oliver Reed from that. But to the very end, when the cameras were rolling, he was a professional.
100%.
He never let that private life interfere with his film work. And honest to God, I think he's terrific. And I wish we'd seen more from him at Hammer. He was always very grateful to Hammer. No matter how big he got, and he became a Hollywood star in the end, but he had this wonderful line that he said many years later, where he said, Hammer had given me my start. Mm-hmm. Michael Winner gave me my bread, and then Ken Russell came on the scene and gave me my art. So he was a man who didn't forget his roots. He remembered Hammer, and he was immensely grateful to them for trusting him. He was an unknown when he made this film. Mm-hmm. He wasn't Oliver Reed. I mean, what is he, 22 when he made this film? And, he was an unknown. He'd done, Two Faces of Dr. Jekyll and a couple of other things, but he wasn't Oliver Reed the star.
No.
He was just Oliver Reed the jobbing actor. They gave him a lead role. And I don't think he ever really forgot that.
No.
I think he was always immensely grateful to Hammer for doing that.
And you were saying earlier how sort of structurally the screenplay has some issues because you don't see the werewolf till later. I was like, sorry, excuse me, tapping my watch, like, when's Ollie turning up? With all this stuff about beggars and servant girls and small children and stuff. I'm like, I was promised Oliver Reed.
But when he does turn up, my God.
I mean, just owns this film.
It's a proper star-making moment, this, isn't it? This is where he suddenly becomes, that guy.
There is this...
I remember him.
This amazing moment where he's not even really doing anything. He's just left home and he's sort of, as I said earlier, sort of out to seek his fortune. He's off to go and get a job, right? And he's just kind of... I don't know, walking through the countryside, he picks a bit of wheat or something that he's kind of chewing. He's sort of kicking up dirt and having a bit of a skip along, like a man who has just entered the world and is out to seek his freedom. He's got, every sort of element of life within him. And he's not even really doing anything. He's not saying anything.
Sure.
He's just walking down a path and you think, this bloke has got it, He's got it. He was such a natural actor. Yeah.
He a lot of times I can see actors acting. I can see them doing it. Mm. I can see them trying a bit too hard. Mm. With Ollie, you never got that sense that he was acting. He was just turning up and being this character. And I've got to say, and this film really, really highlights this more than anything else, nobody in the whole history of British cinema has ever brooded quite like Oliver Reed. My God, when that man needs to brood, he could turn it on, couldn't he?
This is what I was saying in the Two Faces of Dr. Jekyll, when he's just sitting at a table in a club. Right. It's like nobody sits at a table like Oliver Reed.
No, exactly. And you get a sense of that in here as well, don't you? With like a sort of the tavern scene where he's starting to transform.
Absolutely,
or the first, And, he's like... He's sitting there and he's starting to sweat, but he's still brooding. Mm-hmm. And then, it's only when he starts to lose control and become the beast that that veneer of coolness is stripped away. And, he handles that so well. Yeah. And he handles the physicality of it so
Absolutely.
Well. That's a key thing, isn't it? There's a lovely story he had relating to his physicality on the set. There's a scene where he has to rip the cell door off and sort of throw it at the jailer, played by Dennis Shaw. And he got so lost in the moment, so swept up in it, he said, I picked up that door and I threw it at him. It wasn't a balsa wood door, it was a real door. And Dennis shat himself. Literally, he shat himself. And I think... That is such an Oliver Reed story, isn't it? I mean, no other actor would have that as a story, that he was throwing actual doors at his co-stars and then sort of literally making them mess themselves, basically. But, what a star. What an absolute star. Even in this film, he was exuding star quality.
That's right, as you say, sort of this early, you could see it.
This early, yeah. It's a magnificent performance. It really is quite extraordinary.
So how do you find his sort of performance as the wolf then? You know, we've talked about him as this sort of romantic lead, because there's a lot of sort of, you know, swooning women in this.
That's
you know,
right,
sort of
yeah.
pouring themselves all over him. Who can blame him? And, you know, he's broody and he's sort of excited to be out in the world. He's adventurous, all of that.
Sure.
But what about the sort of wolf, right? How beyond his physicality, do you think that he sells it, the sort of the monstrousness?
Definitely. Like I said earlier, because Roy Ashton had the good sense to allow him to keep his eyes in shot. And, you know, Oliver Reed, no matter what else he had going for him, he had the most extraordinary eyes. I mean, really expressive, really striking. And he kept that, you know, peering out through the makeup. And he does some really good eye acting with this, where he sells the sort of the rage of the werewolf, but at the same time, the vulnerability and fear of Leon. And he manages to do that in the same scene sometimes, which is amazing. And we only get to see him in full wolf makeup, really, at the end of the film. But it's a terrific performance. He does look, like a lot of Oliver Reed's parts, like he would do you some harm.
Yeah.
He does look like, you know, this isn't sort of, you know, portly old Lon Chaney Jr., bless him, that sort of, you know, he was great in The Wolfman, but I never felt...
He was great. A lot of people don't like him, and I don't like those people, because I think Lon Chaney Jr. is great.
I like him, but he never felt to me like he was going to hurt me in any way.
Much of a threat, yeah.
Whereas Oliver Reed is absolutely a threat under all that makeup. You know, he is a proper wolf. And I think, you know, he plays it so well, doesn't he? He really does.
It's so good. Let's talk about some of the other members of the cast then. So we've got, basically, he's sort of taken in by proxy, because Don Alfredo Corledo, who is played by a brilliant, I think, Clifford Evans, finds the servant girl in the forest. He brings her home. He has a sort of housekeeper, I would say, called Teresa, played by is it Hera Talfrey?
I've always thought of it as Hira Talfrey.
Hira Talfrey. Yeah. And I think these two are really great as just kind of the heart at the centre of this film.
Definitely. Don Alfredo Corledo, quite apart from sounding like he should be a mafia mob boss, because I almost called him Don Corleone.
Don Corleone.
His name, that's why I stumbled. But I think he's another great tragic figure in this film. Yeah. Almost as tragic as Leon. He has to kill this boy that he has raised from childhood. You know, his mum dies in childbirth. His father dead before he was born. The poor boy has nothing, but he takes him in. He keeps an eye on him. And then at the end, at the minute they first mention silver bullets, you get that sinking feeling, don't you? You think, oh, he's going to have to kill it. Because, you know, they don't explicitly say this in the film, but there is that werewolf mythology, isn't there? You always kill the one you love. You know, werewolves can only be killed by someone who loves them. Yeah. And, you know, we see that even in American Werewolf in London. The only way that he could be stopped is because, you know, Jenny Agutter sort of be quite willing to confront him and put herself in danger for her because of her love for him. And you get that here, that he has to be killed by someone who loves him. And it's such a tragic moment. Clifford Evans, the look on his face when he realises what he has to do.
Oh, God.
Oh, it's brilliant. He's such a good actor, Clifford Evans. He's great in this. We'll see him again in The Kiss of the Vampire. One of those, you know, we've said this before so many times, but it's always worth repeating that Hammer got incredible casts, particularly by this stage when their films were, you know, always doing, you know, mostly doing well. People were queuing up to be in Hammer films. It wasn't seen as a kind of, I'll do it for the kids, or, you know, if I really must, if there's nothing else going on, darling, I'll just make a horror film sort of thing. They wanted to be in these films because they were well-made and hugely popular films. And, you know, you were getting these incredible casts. You were getting people like Clifford Evans. You were getting Hira Talfrey, who's, you know, again, he's amazing. She's so good.
They are both so good. And in fact, it was, because you're right about Clifford Evans, absolutely. And he brings so much weight and pathos and warmth as well to this role. But it's Hira Talfrey for me, as, you know, she could be just, I don't know, another housekeeper. You see them in every other Hammer film, it seems, at the moment. But she is so wonderful in this. Yes. She just has so much weight behind her performance.
She does, and it's such a shame this was her only Hammer film. We're not going to see her again in Hammer films. You will, however, see her in a rival to Hammer. Very striking sequence. She's the woman that's hung at the beginning of Witchfinder General.
Is she?
She is. So she's got, she's earned her place in the sort of the annals of British horror film history.
Wow,
so,
yeah.
But, that was a sort of, throwaway kind of role, really. This one's quite a meaty role.
It is meaty. I think that's the nice thing about it, and what I'm sort of saying about the housekeeper role, really. Like, if you think back to Brides of Dracula,
yes,
obviously the Greta role is quite meaty, but it's really nice here to. I think Teresa has even more to do almost in this, because she isn't just a housekeeper. She's Leon's mother, really.
That's right.
Not biologically,
figure.
but she's the one who sort of takes him in and cares for him, and but sort of between her and Don Corledo, they create a home for him, and that is what then adds to the tragedy later. Even before Don Corledo has to literally kill him, even when they're just sort of saying goodbye to him, and you get the feeling they're going to have a sort of empty nest syndrome.
I know, yeah. So I mean, we said earlier that Anthony Hines hadn't quite got the hang of writing women yet, but I think this role does work. I think Teresa is a really good role. Whether that comes from the script or whether that comes from Hira Talfrey taking what was in the script and building on it, I don't know at this stage.
This is what I was just about to say. I think it has the potential to not be a very interesting female role. But I think Hira Talfrey's performance,
she makes it.
Yeah.
And I just love the fact that these two people who really didn't have to do anything for Leon at all, they make him the man that he becomes, and the man that we actually get to really, really like before he starts sprouting fur. He's a really nice guy.
Yeah, I know.
He's just this young bloke going out chasing the girls, getting drunk like all 22-year-olds would do. I think he's playing slightly younger in the film, but he's a lovely, lovely guy, is Leon, and that's all down to this sort of upbringing.
I think the line that really made me fall for Leon as a character is he spies Christina, his love interest, kind of across the courtyard. She's betrothed to this rich bloke, and Leon is talking to his mate, his sort of counterpart in, bottling this wine at the winery. And she's engaged, and he says, well, is she happy?
Yes.
And Jose, his mate, says something like, what do you think? Look at him. And it's like, well, actually, that's not what he's asking. He's not asking, is she happy that she's marrying a rich bloke?
No.
He can kind of empathise and see just by looking at her that she's obviously bored out of her tree and doesn't want to be with this man at all.
Because he had a very difficult childhood. I think he's very empathetic.
I think that's probably
towards other people.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know, you don't always expect, maybe this is me being a cynical 43-year-old woman, but you don't always expect men to necessarily care about whether a woman is happy or not, especially if you're just sort of lusting after her after the first time you've ever seen her, but the fact that he asks, is she happy? Rather than, is she, I don't know, available, is she up for it?
I think, if he'd gone over to her and said, are you really happy? We'd have thought, oh, he's just trying it on with her, isn't he? He's just trying to impress her. I think it's the fact that he said it out of her earshot.
Yeah, that's such a good point.
To his mate. That he's like, that's genuine.
He actually does care. Yeah,
he does
definitely
care. Exactly. Yeah. If he'd gone strutting over there being Jack the lad, so
are you really happy with this?
You're
bloke,
really happy. I can make you happy, darling, and all that sort of stuff. Then it wouldn't have worked. It wouldn't have worked at all. It'd have just been this laddish yob, basically. But the fact that he says it to his friend in a very wistful sort of way.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, wistful.
He genuinely cares about this woman he knows nothing about. It's just amazing. It's really good.
So what do you think of Catherine Feller as Christina Fernando, the daughter of the man who owns the vineyard where Leon starts to work?
Well, I mean, you can see why he falls for her. She's absolutely striking, isn't she?
Yeah, she
gorgeous
is.
French actress who, again, her only hammer role. I think the problem is she's not terribly well written.
No.
As a character, she's just there as a bit of love interest. She's almost like a MacGuffin in a way to get the third act moving.
Yeah.
You know, sort of like, look what Leon's going to lose by being a werewolf. He'll lose everything, but look, he's going to lose her more than anything else. And it's like, well, you know, she probably deserves a bit better than that. I think she does okay in the past, but she's kind of defeated a little bit by the script.
Yeah, I really agree with that. I think she's absolutely fine. You know, she's very, very, as you say, striking. I think she plays the part really nicely.
Yeah.
I don't think the part is much to write home about.
It's not. She turns up and does what's on the page, and there's not a lot on the page. That's the problem. The thing I do like about the character is the fact that, you know, she is engaged to this, another example of these sort of boorish aristocratic types. He's not quite an aristocrat, but he's upper middle class. Mm-hmm. And he's a monster. He's awful. He's a horrible man. It does make me think, what the hell did you see in him? And I kind of assume it was an arranged thing.
I think it's very much arranged, because he's the son of the owner of the vineyard, isn't he? And I think her dad just like manages it.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So let's get him married off to the boss's. Get her married off to the boss's son, and we'll be in clover for the rest of our lives. She claps one look at Oliver Reed and thinks, "Oh no, I'm going over here. I'm going to follow this young man." And honestly, who could blame her? There's not a court in the land that would convict
her. Eyes aren't painted on, mate.
Oh, absolutely no. She takes one look at young Leon and thinks, "There's the man that I'm going to marry."
And who else have we got on this cast list? Because it's a big cast. We were chatting before.
It is a huge cast.
Before we started recording, Kev, that in my notes I've had to sort of break them down into, we'll talk about these ones in a bit of detail. We'll talk about these ones in slightly less detail. And these ones we're just going to mention that they're in it, because otherwise we're not going to talk about anything else.
I took it quite personally, because I thought, she's just been taking some of the criticism to heart and like, just shut Lyons up.
Shut up, Lyons.
Just put in a quick mention, and then very quick mention, just speeding up a bit.
In italics.
So I've now written entire book-length studies on all of those people in your quick mentions list. So, that'll learn you.
Yeah, I want all your citations, please, Kev. But I'll tell you who we do get is a familiar face, certainly, I think, for British audiences. Yes. The brilliant Warren Mitchell turns up as Pepe, who is the kind of... He's sort of the local hunter, and he seems to be paid by the mayor and the sort of shepherds to basically keep an eye out for wolves and, you know, keep their livestock safe.
Exactly. And, you know, it's Warren Mitchell. Of course, a whole generation of us remember him as Alf Garnett, you know, the bigoted star of a really successful sitcom in the 60s. But there was a lot more to him than that. Yeah. And I think... at times, you used to get quite annoyed that people only talked about Alf Garnett, because he was the exact opposite of Alf Garnett. And I think, you know, he got a little bit fed up with people coming up to you and saying, "Oh, yeah, you're absolutely right about all those types." You know?
Almost like tarring the actor with the brush of this pretty monstrous character,
But if you delve into his career a lot more, you'd see him playing all sorts of things. He was in Carry On films. He's in Carry On Cleo as their sort of slave master or slave seller. He's really funny in that. Gifted comedian, very funny comedian, but also a really, really well-respected character actor. Yeah. You know, he'd been in for Hammer, he'd already done Stranglers of Bombay and Hell is a City, and he'd go on to appear in Moon 02, but the less said about that, the better. Thankfully, we're not covering that because it's science fiction and it's shit, so we're not covering that one, but yeah.
But he's great. He's great here as Pepe. I think this is such a lovely little character. Yeah. He's so passionate about his job, which I really like.
He is.
It's like when he basically, he shoots little Leon. So we'll come on to talk about young Leon, who's played by Justin Waters in a minute. But he does his job, Pepe, as he's meant to. He shoots the wolf as he's meant to.
Yeah.
But because it's a werewolf and he turns back into this young boy, the sort of wolf's body is never found, and he sees the blood on the ground, but that's it, and nobody else believes him.
That's
and
right.
He basically spends the rest of the film sort of trying to convince people that he's not bad at his job.
Exactly, yeah. You got this guy who's sort of got a good reputation for being, a good craftsman at his job. Is suddenly, because he shot a little boy who then turns into a werewolf. Little boy survives, obviously, but no one believes a word he says after that.
Yeah.
And it's, you can see him struggling. I think Warren Mitchell does this so well. Him struggling with this loss of face.
Yep.
And this loss of stature, this loss of, his social stature is declining, And he's so good at that. And I think that he has this lovely relationship with Anne Blake as Rosa, his wife.
His wife, yeah.
It's a proper sort of, country working class relationship, isn't it?
Definitely. This absolutely isn't a marriage of convenience at all, is it?
Not at
These
all.
two really care about each other, and she's brilliant the way she sticks up for him. She's like, when they're all mocking him in the pub, if any of you says one more thing about my husband,
She's so good. She's the secretly underneath it all. She's the wife we all want. She's going to be the one who's going to be by your side and fight in your corner for you for the whole of your married life. She's terrific. I love her. And I love Warren Mitchell. And I think these two characters are absolutely marvellous.
Yeah, I really agree. So let's talk, because I know that this is a bit of a spoiler for what we'll come on to talk about later.
Yes.
But my favourite bit of this whole film is when Leon's a little boy, and they're starting to get some suspicions after he gets shot in the leg with a silver bullet. No, actually, just a bullet. Just this is
right.
Before the
Yeah,
silver
just a bullet.
He gets shot in the leg.
Yeah.
Because he's been out prowling around.
Yes.
He's got out of his window. He's out sort of hunting goats and squirrels and things.
That's right. Yeah.
And he comes back, and so they have to put bars on his windows so to stop him getting out. And then all of a sudden, in the middle of the night, there is this commotion in his room, and this little kid, Justin Walters is the actor's name. He's great. He's very cute. And he is at the bars, and they've got like little werewolf teeth on him, Kev.
I know. I love it. It's one of my, again, spoiler, that's one of my key moments as well.
I love it so much.
Love it. Justin Walters, I mean, the casting, whoever did the casting on this film was a bloody genius, because he looks like a young Oliver Reed.
I was just about to say that. It's so
He looks
good.
just like Oliver Reed. It's staggering. It's always amazed me from the first time I saw it. I was thinking, is that his little brother? Is it his son? What's going on here? But that character is utterly heartbreaking. I said earlier, the bit that makes me snivel a little bit, it's when he's in bed and he's talking to Don Corleone, whatever his name is. He's talking to his dad figure, and he's talking about his night terrors basically. And he says, "I have bad dreams every night." And I'm just like, oh, you poor little son.
I know.
Oh, do you just want to scoop him up, don't you, and give him a hug and tell him it's going to be all right, even though you know even at that stage it's really not going to be all right. But he's such a tragic little guy. And Justin Walters sells that brilliantly. That one line, "I have bad dreams every night." And he said, oh, man, you poor little fella. It's heartbreaking stuff. And he's really good. I really like him.
Yeah, I do as well. For a very young actor, because I'm he must be about, I don't know, 6 or 7.
6 or 7, I would say.
Yeah. And he really does a very, very good job. I think he's very sweet, very endearing, and very confident, really, really delivers all those lines.
And when he's snarling at the windows for the bars, oh boy, is he selling that? He's having a great time. I can imagine him and Ollie sitting in the canteen beforehand, and Oliver's going, this is what you do, lad. Come on, you do it this way. Oh, and he's sort of giving you werewolf. I don't know what he did, but I can just imagine it. And if it didn't happen, I don't want to know, because that's how I'm going to imagine it for the rest of my days. That, Oliver Reed giving Justin Walters werewolf lessons, because he does it so well.
He's basically like a werewolf puppy, and I'm into it. He's so cute.
He is. He's lovely. It's a terrific performance. It really is.
Another performance I really like is Martin Matthews as Jose. So this is, as I say, it's Lyons' counterpart at the winery. There's a brilliant bit where he's giving him he's sort of the lie of the land. He's showing him around the bottling room, and he says, it's very easy. Wine is in here, red and white. Here are the bottles. Here are the labels. Wine goes on the inside, labels on the outside.
Yeah. I don't like him as much as you do, I don't think.
Okay.
I think his performance is a bit too... I'm trying to find the right words here, because I have actor friends and I don't want to upset them. A bit too... regional theatre. That's going to annoy some of my actor friends. You know what I mean? It's a bit too sort of like, not quite amateur dramatics, but it's too sort of, I'm delivering this to the back row sort of thing.
Sure.
A bit
too, okay.
A bit too big. That. A bit too big. Now, later in his career, you would have had to be big to go against the later incarnation of Oliver Reed. But as he's kind of playing it down here, it kind of almost comes close to overshadowing Leon a little bit. And I'm a bit... he's one of the few victims in the film where I'm thinking, oh, thank God for that. He's strangled Jose.
I'm the opposite. I was really sad when Jose died. I think just
there you go. That just shows, though, doesn't it, how two people could watch the same thing and have entirely different...
Yeah, definitely.
Takes on it.
And for me, the reason it worked is because he is just like, he's the affable best mate. And I think he doesn't really need it. Like, he's quite an archetypal part. And so the fact that he plays it with relatively broad strokes doesn't really bother me too much.
Okay.
He's just like, he's the best mate, When
I watch it again, and I will, because I watch it quite often, I will bear that in mind, and maybe I'll change my mind on it. But we'll see.
We've already talked a little bit about the absolutely repugnant Marcus.
Anthony Dawson.
The guy who, Anthony Dawson. And what I didn't realise, I don't know if they don't say it in the film, but until I actually looked up the cast listing, is the character's name is Marquez Siniestro.
That's right.
It's like his name is basically like Mr. Sinister, which is so good.
Who would have thought he turned out the way he did?
Right, exactly.
Nominative determinism,
Yeah, that's exactly. Nominative determinism, exactly that. But, sinister is one word for it. And as I say, repugnant is another. Sadistic, Anthony Dawson is very good.
Sadistic bastard are two other words I'd use for him. He's brilliant.
He says there's one point where he's sort of like, hello, my dear, what are you doing in my room or something? Why don't you show me exactly what you're doing in my, that sort of thing. It's like,
I thought when I was watching it last night, that's the kind of line that you could get Rick Mayall to have said as one of his sort of lonely, hopeless characters, like, sort of Richie from Bottom. He'd have done that because he doesn't know any better, because he thinks that's how men should behave around women, and he's hopeless and useless, and that would be fucking hilarious. That would be so funny, because it's Rick Mayall doing it, and it would have been a riot. But this, when he says almost the same sort of thing, it makes your skin crawl.
Yeah, I've just found
it really does.
You're lovely, aren't you? Why don't you show me just how lovely you can be, eh?
Excuse me, I just need to rub my arm to get rid of my goosebumps.
Yeah, exactly.
My skin is crawling. He is a repulsive character, and Anthony Dawson, I'm sure, was nothing like that in real life. You see him in other films, he's nothing like this. So where he drew that from, I don't know, but he conveys it so well. This helps, of course, in later scenes with that incredible decrepit makeup job from Roy Ashton.
As you say. But again, when he's like picking at it in the mirror.
Picking his scabs. Man, he's horrible, isn't he? He's much more monstrous than the werewolf. I'm sorry, but he is. He's just awful.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for the werewolf. I do not feel sorry for him.
Not at any point. No, like I say, I'm absolutely delighted when Yvonne Romain's servant girl stabs him to death with a big bit of metal.
Quite right. So that's genuinely one of those punch the air moments, isn't it? You know, like, yes.
Yeah, like, you know, good for her. Good for her moment. She's great. And to be honest, considering the part is mute, right? That's part of it, is that this mute servant girl. Yvonne Romain is excellent, and she's has to do it all with her facial expressions. Yeah. And yeah, she I think she's very good.
Beautiful, expressive face. Mm-hmm. She's absolutely stunning, but she manages to sell so much with just her eyes.
That's it.
Yeah, she doesn't.
It's not
need
an easy thing to do a non-verbal role, and I think Yvonne Romain really.
But when you've got that level of eye acting, you can get away with it, which is incredible. You know, Hammer recognised something in her. We'll see her in Captain Clegg in a few weeks' time. And she was in the adventure film, The Brigand of Kandahar, which we're not going to cover, but very good in both parts. Mm-hmm. She never really got sort of big, showy parts for Hammer, but she made the most of them. And I think she's terrific in this. She's really, like I say, there's a genuine punch-the-air moment. Go, girl, when she stabs him. You think, yeah. And real sort of sense of deflation when she dies in childbirth.
Yeah.
Or just shortly after childbirth. It's a really touching moment where she sees the baby and she gets to see the baby and then just dies.
Yeah.
It's like she was holding on just to make sure that the baby was born okay.
That's absolutely what it feels like. Yeah. And I really love that. Because, again, she gets that across.
A Hammer film that makes you cry. Who would have thought it? But, you know, there are genuine moments here. Just as a point of interest, that's her cousin, Lorraine Carvana, playing this servant girl when she's a child.
Oh, so this is more sort of familial casting, as we were suggesting.
Familial casting, yeah.
Leon, but oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so this is actually genuinely that she is a relative of hers. So that's a rather lovely little touch, isn't it?
And of course we've got the beggar as well, and he's just in the beginning of the film.
Yes.
But what a delight to see Richard Wordsworth back. And so first time I saw Curse of the Werewolf, I hadn't seen the Quatermass Experiment, or Revenge of Frankenstein, where we've obviously seen him before. And so I'd forgotten really about even this whole sort of opening part. And the moment he's on screen, I thought, oh my God, it's our favourite.
It's Caroon.
Yeah, it's Caroon. Here he is.
And in a way, this feels a little bit like we're drawing the curtain on the first act of Hammer Time, because this is his last Hammer appearance.
Oh, wow.
So we started with him in Quatermass Experiment. We've now seen him for the last time in our story. And so it kind of feels like that's Act 1 done now, because we haven't got any more Richard Wordsworth. And there should have been more Richard Wordsworth. I mentioned, I think, way back in Quatermass that he didn't do a lot of films. He was mainly a stage actor. Yeah. I just so wish he'd done more. Yeah. I think he's just such a brilliant actor, and he plays the beggar so well.
Incredible.
He really does.
When, as I said earlier, they've sort of got him in the big hall where they're having the feast, and they're basically making him, sing for his supper, but, dance.
Yeah.
And there is, we were talking about Oliver Reed's physicality, but he's sort of initially very nervous and doesn't really know what to do and how to move. He says, I can't dance. And they say, okay, everybody can dance. Come on. And so he starts moving slightly, and then they start cheering, and the wine that they're pouring down his throat starts to kick in. Yeah. There's an incredible bit where he sort of whips his cloak around.
That's right.
Sort of ties himself up in it and gets it all sort of around his face, and all of those little moments. Considering this is a character without an actual, credited name, it's just beggar. This could have been a completely forgettable and nothing part, but
in other hands, it possibly would have been.
Yeah. But he's just so great.
And what's really, really heartbreaking again is he doesn't understand that they're taking the mickey out of him.
I know.
He doesn't understand that they're laughing at him. He thinks that they're warming to him and cheering him on, and they're not. They're humiliating him. The poor guy, again, where's the tissues? I'm going to tear up again. You know?
But again, it is once again leaning into this sort of theme of, the people being the monsters.
That's right.
Much more than the actual monsters are the monsters. So on to our in italics, very quick mentions. Firstly, everybody get your bingo cards out because Michael Ripper's here.
Hey, we should have the sound effect of a round of applause or an audience applauding every time you mention Michaal Ripper, shouldn't we? Yay! Yes, here he is playing a sort of crazy Ralph prototype, isn't he? He's sort of, the drunken bum who's sort of like giving out all these sort of warnings about what's going on out there in the surrounding countryside. Terrific. Terrific. I mean, he's Michael Ripper. He's just wonderful.
He's great. And he actually sort of comes back in a later scene as well. So you get him...
he's in the cell, isn't he?
Yeah, he's in the cell. So you get him in the tavern, absolutely...
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Absolutely shit-faced and kind of telling everybody about what he's seen and, the werewolf and all that kind of stuff. And then later he turns up and he's obviously gone a bit too far because he's in prison.
That's right. Yeah, they finally had enough and locked him up. Yeah. It's a very subtle, funny moment. It's very good.
It's really good, yeah. When it's just nice to see Michael Ripper sort of come back for a second scene because I don't know that we've really had that yet.
We haven't. He's just turned up for like cameo appearances up to this point, but here he's actually sort of, yay, we got him back again.
A little bit more to do. Yeah. He's credited as Old Soak, which I really like.
It's fantastic. Drunken bum, basically, is what they
basically.
Mean, yeah.
And the other person to mention, and I suppose this is, again, a little bit like... Warren Mitchell, and this is, for sort of fans of British sitcoms, is we've got Peter Sallis.
Indeed, yes. Who, of course, we all know is one of the ageing idiots in Last of the Summer Wine.
Yeah.
Not a programme I used to particularly enjoy, but when I did see it...
I hated it, Kev.
My dad used to like it, so I'd watch it occasionally. And Peter Sallis was always my favourite character in it.
Yeah.
I always liked Peter Sallis. This was long before I'd seen any Hammer films at this point, and we are going to see him again in at least one other Hammer film. Maybe two, but at least one, certainly another one. And he's going to be excellent in that one as well. But he's great. He just turns up and he does his part. And it's kind of, a wonderful character actor as well as just a relatively straight guy to a couple of idiots.
Well, and of course, people will know him as the voice of Wallace from Wallace and Gromit.
Wallace, absolutely.
Perhaps
and
even
you know
more
what?
Famously than his Last of the Summer Wine.
I was going to boycott the last one because Peter Sallis sadly died.
Yes.
And I thought, I'll go on then. I'll give it a go. And the minute it doesn't sound like Peter Sallis, I'm out of here. No, I'm not having any of that. I stayed to the end because that guy that did his voice did it brilliantly, honestly, I have to say.
Didn't he do a wonderful job?
Didn't he do a great job? It's not Peter Sallis. Of course it's not Peter Sallis. And we would have wanted Peter Sallis to go on forever and to keep on doing amazing things. But he did a superb job, I think.
I agree. I went in with exactly the same frame of mind as you did. This is going to be weird and uncanny, and I'm not going to like
enjoy
it.
This.
After a couple of minutes, I didn't even notice. I thought it was
didn't even notice
wonderful.
It. And I'd like to think, I don't know what comes next, but I would like to think that wherever Peter Sallis is, year ago Christmas, he was looking down, watching celestial television, and thinking, "Yeah, well done, chap. That's not bad at all. That's not bad at all."
Absolutely mortified by the return to our screens of the most evil being that has ever been committed.
Feathers McGraw.
Feathers McGraw, oh my God. So terrifying.
The greatest villain in cinema history, and I will brook no argument on that point. We need to do there you go, add to the list. We're going to do a Wallace and Gromit podcast as well. There you go.
Perfect. I'm in.
Definitely.
So how about favourite moments? We've already talked about some of the cute moments and the funny moments and the sad moments. Anything else sort of specifically that you want to pull out of Curse of the Werewolf?
Well, that snarling behind the bar scene is a standout. That's just terrific. The way Fisher just suddenly cuts to it.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God, look, the boy's transforming. This is horrific. It's really scary. But the other bit I like is kind of a bit more subtle, I suppose. Well, not really, but it's kind of toned down compared to what we're going to get later, is when they're at his christening and the font starts bubbling and a storm rages outside on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you get thunderstorms in the winter in Spain, but it seems unlikely, to say the least. So clearly something supernatural is afoot.
Yeah.
Something a bit weird is afoot.
I'm so glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? It's a terrific little scene that, again, wasn't necessary. They could have just said, well, here he is as a little boy and not bothered with the christening scene, but I think it adds so much to it.
Yeah.
That there's clearly something wrong with this boy right from the very start.
Yeah.
Oh, very creepy. So I love that moment.
I mean, yeah, the fact that the, holy water in the font is, bubbling. I mean, this is sort of calling forward to, the Omen films and stuff like that. It is,
isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, absolutely it is. And it's like... He's so creepy.
Yeah.
He's so creepy, but in a quiet and sort of understated kind of way. Another moment I like, actually, and this is to answer a question from a friend, actually, who asked me what this meant. There's a bit where when Leon is upstairs being born, and Don... gangster guy, he's downstairs. Sorry, I'm going back to check his name because I'm just going to keep calling him Don Corleone. Don Corleone. I want to call him Don Corleone. Don Corleone. He's downstairs and he hears what appears to be a wolf howling.
Yes.
Followed by a baby crying.
Yes.
And a friend of mine asked, what do you think that means? Does that mean the boy comes out howling? I think it's more symbolic.
I agree.
I think he actually hears the baby crying, but he interprets it as a wolf howling.
Yeah.
And because he does that little thing, doesn't he, where he hears it, and then he hears the baby crying.
And he sort of goes,
almost like, it's like a sigh of relief, like, I just misinterpreted it. That was all right. And I think it's just it's one of those things you're not meant to take it literally, I don't think.
I agree with that. It's a
symbolic moment that something evil has entered the world in the guise of something innocent. So the innocent cry of a newborn baby is misinterpreted as the evil howl of a werewolf.
Love that. Okay, so we've talked about the transformation. One of my favourite bits, and it sort of comes up 2 or 3 times throughout the film. Once on little Leon, and then later when you get a kind of POV shot of Oliver Reed looking down at his hands as they are transforming. And he's got these hairy palms. And I don't know if this is just because I'm an extremely immature girl and always have been. But we were talking earlier about werewolves as kind of a proxy for, teenage transformations and stuff. And every time I see it, I'm like, well, it would be all right if he stopped wanking for 5 minutes.
Do you know what? I think that as well, because I think when I was younger, and clearly when you were younger too, there was that kind of myth, wasn't there? That, sort of knocking one out made you have hairy hands.
Yes.
And as I've grown up, the backs of my hands are quite hairy. And I kind of think, oh, thank God the palms haven't gone, because that would be quite awkward for people of my generation to deal with, wouldn't it? But no, I thought the same thing as well. And there is a lovely little moment, isn't there, where the guy comes into the jail to question Leon and says, show me your hands. And he almost shyly turns them over.
Yeah.
As if he's expecting hairy palms. And it's, I kind of wondered, was that a joke?
I know, but it's, because it's funny when it's Oliver Reed, but it is so funny when it's the little boy, when it's Justin Walters. Because obviously he's too young, but at the same time, it's like he's in bed when he does it. And
That's right,
like his dad sort of turns his hands over, and it's just like, oh my God, it's like you're shaming him. It's so funny.
It's simultaneously hilarious and really disturbing.
Yeah, I know.
It's one of those where it's a really dark humour.
But obviously I realise that it's just me being horribly childish, but I can't help laughing at it.
If you are, you're not the only one, because I laugh at it as well. But
okay, that's good. That's a relief.
I'll tell you what, the other thing about the hands, which is quite interesting, is when we see Leon's first proper transformation at the end, and he looks down at his hands, and part of the lap dissolve, his hands turn black.
Yeah.
Almost like they've sort of started rotting. Mm-hmm. Like Leon's skin is going to fall off.
Yeah.
And be replaced by this new skin of the werewolf. Really quite... horrible moment, that.
It is horrible, and it sort of starts, I think, sort of at the fingernails, and I wonder if that was sort of a choice to maybe, like, I don't know if it was they didn't sort of know how to do it, or like what the decision was behind it, but they don't sort of have, you know, a classic, you know, the claws kind of growing or sprouting or anything like that. But they seem to get around it, or they just made the conscious decision to start that kind of blackening of the hands like at the fingernails, and then it seems to like creep backwards up the hands, which is very effective and very cool. And
which gives Oliver Reed a superb moment when he's reacting to it. It's like, this is where it starts on the extremities. Yeah. And it's creeping towards him.
Yeah.
And he knows at this point what he's going to become. And there's a look of absolute horror on his face because he can't stop it. And it must be, you know, him watching it crawl up his arm or something until eventually it just consumes him. Yeah. And they do that fantastic reveal where he's in the cell.
Oh, my God.
He's got his back to the camera and he turns around and he's snarling.
It's so cool. What a shot.
Amazing. Terence Fisher at his finest there, I think. Yes, we get to kind of zoom in, don't we, like we did with the Frankenstein monster in Curse of Frankenstein. We had that kind of... He doesn't do the undercranking.
It doesn't do this. Yeah, it doesn't do the undercranking, but otherwise it's very similar. It's
same effect.
So effective.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we both love it. So, what did everyone else think?
We didn't do very well. It opened on a double bill with The Shadow of the Cat, which we're going to talk about next week.
Next week, yeah.
Which, I don't know, maybe it was just an odd double bill. Maybe it was the fact that word got around that it felt a bit disjointed because of the cuts. Because the cuts were very obvious, I seem to remember. Somewhere I have a videotape recorded off television of it, which I must dig out one day and try and get it transferred to digital. Which will have been the cut version of it. I'm so used now to seeing the restored version. I kind of forget what the original, what that cut version looked like. But it does sort of... I do wonder if people went to it and thought, oh, that's a bit weird, isn't it? It kind of jumps around a bit and you don't see anything, you don't see any gore. Told their friends and they thought, oh, we'll go and see something else instead.
Yeah, won't bother.
Yeah, so it's weird, isn't it? It's odd. It just didn't do very well. It didn't do awful. It wasn't a disaster. It just didn't do as well as Hammer would have hoped. And I think he put them off a little bit because they didn't make any more werewolf films.
At all?
No. The only time we get to see them under their name is in the Children of the Full Moon episode of Hammer House of Horror.
Okay.
Which got a whole family of werewolves in that one. But they didn't bother with werewolves again after this. It's just like... Maybe they just thought audiences don't like werewolves. Yeah. Maybe that, to go back to the very beginning, is why British filmmakers didn't make werewolf films, because they thought audiences aren't interested in them.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, it's odd. I don't know why, because I think it did. I think it's a lovely film. I think it's a terrific film. In America, it got cut as well, and they sort of didn't really respond as well to it as they might have hoped.
Well, maybe that's why we like it now, because, we are able to see it as it was originally
because
intended.
We've seen it was intended to be, exactly. And we also, as we go through this, and I hope that, I know there's a lot of people that have spoken to me and said they're following this journey with us by watching the films with us as we go along. Mm-hmm. And I'm hoping that they're getting the same sense that we're getting about the context within Hammer's history.
Yeah.
And that sort of, when they were watching this film in 1961, it was just another Hammer film.
Exactly, right.
Now we see it as something, positioned slightly differently in their history. So I think that helps as well. I think, it is a much more liked film today than it was back then, I think.
Well, I am a particular fan. So where are we going to rank this one, Kev? Would you go elite, upper, middle or lower?
I'm ummed about this a little bit because the structural issues bugged me. But as we've talked, because originally I said high, upper. Mm-hmm. I'm actually going to now say low, elite.
Oh my God, I love it.
I think talking it through with you, I think I've actually sort of persuaded myself that it's actually... It's up a notch. I think it's a low upper. It's not the same kind of... low elite. I don't think it's the same kind of elite as Bride of Dracula and Curse of Frankenstein. Nothing is, It's, apart from Dracula and a few other ones we're going to talk about later on. But, very few films are. But I think it's up there with them. I think it's a very creditable film. And I love it. I absolutely love it. And I will not hear a bad word said against it.
I think I'm going to join you up there in Lower Ely. I was going to say, like you, upper.
Yeah.
But, and I think the main reason for that is because just the main contention for me is that just the women don't have a lot to do.
Yeah.
But even talking about, Yvonne Remain's incredible non-verbal performance, even talking about Hyra Talfrey as Teresa.
Yeah.
I think, and Anne Blake as Rosa, who's just like, she is just another wife, but she is written with something a bit more, where she's constantly sticking up for Pepe, and they've got this lovely relationship. I think we should
introduce a new feature for future episodes. Spot the moment where Kevin and Becky start to realise that they've changed their minds about the film. At what point in the podcast did Kev suddenly realise, actually, this deserves to go up a level?
It was definitely one of my faves kind of coming into this journey anyway, because I'd already seen it and enjoyed it last year. So sod it. Let's do it. Let's go Lower Elite.
Let's do it. We're going to say it's elite, and anybody wants to argue with us, well, wait till the full moon and see what happens.
Thanks for listening to Hammer Time. We'll be back next week with the feline counterpart to today's film, 1961's The Shadow of the Cat. If you are watching along with the podcast, this one's not available to stream, but you can pick it up on physical media, which we should all be supporting anyway, so go and do that.
We should.
To check out the full list of movies we'll be covering throughout the podcast, you can head to evolutionofhorror.com/hammer. We'd love to hear from you, so please send questions or comments for upcoming mailbag episodes. You can drop us an email to hammer@evolutionofhorror.com. You can follow the Evolution of Horror Network on Instagram @EOH_network. You can follow me on Instagram and Blue Sky @BunnyDarke. That's BUNNYDARKE. And Kev, where can people find you and your work online?
Look for EOFF-TV, Encyclopedia of Fantastic Film and Television, Twitter, Blue Sky. What else am I on? Instagram, Facebook.
You can also support the podcast by rating and reviewing us on your podcast app of choice. Thank you so much for listening. Join us next week for another episode of Hammer Time.